Hey guys, welcome back to the Blue Deck Podcast for our second off-season show. I'm Joseph Mazerac. During Season 1, we began to go through my book, Into the Attic of the World, kind of like an audiobook podcast. Before starting that up again, we're taking a break to have a little getting to know you time. To help with that, on this episode, we will be joined again by our guest host, Dalyn Woods. Also, I'm hesitant to mention this, but my sons, William and Dylan, have prepared, well, a special message for you. It's very ridiculous and somewhat disturbing. Actually, I recommend skipping that part of the show, but if you're either very brave or really bored, you might want to stick around to the bitter end. And I do mean bitter. You're not going to like it, or if you're super weird like I am, maybe you will. It's strangely funny, I think anyway. With all that said, take it away, Lynn.
We're here with author and podcast narrator of Into the Attic of the World, Joseph Mazerac. I'm your host, Dalyn Woods. Hi, Joe. Good to see you again.
You too.
So the last time we were talking about your childhood and your dyslexia, and that you actually got your start with graphic novels. Right. So you drew cartoon characters, and you always kind of had a little story in your mind about these characters that you were drawing, but you weren't really writing a story.
Right.
So my original question had been, at what age did you write your first story? But I guess at what age did you write your first graphic novel or cartoon character story?
Probably when I was a teenager is when I actually drew my first comics, just working with friends of mine, and I wrote on those a little bit, but mostly another friend did the writing. But the one that actually published, that one I wrote when I was probably in my mid-20s.
So the friend, y'all were collaborating, he came up with the story and you just drew the pictures? Or did you have the story, but he came up with the words for it?
Well, usually it all started in my sketchbooks because I'd be drawing and I would come up with all these crazy characters. And, I'd show them to my friends and, we just had to do something with these people because they were just ripe for the storytelling. So we had all these characters. Now we just had to make them do something. Maybe we'd have an idea of a setting, but, I'd give it to them to make a story out of it.
Okay, so that's interesting. You drew the characters, and then your friends came up with a story to match the characters. Right. Well, that's an interesting way to do it.
Yeah. At that time, I didn't have really any confidence in my ability to write a story. So
when they came up with a story, did you feel like, okay, yeah, that matches these characters, or did you ever feel like y'all are totally...
No, usually I was very happy with what they wrote. I was very fortunate to be around some extremely creative individuals. Rarely would I have a problem with the story, and we talked it out anyway. But I was pleased with it almost always, or I wouldn't have drawn it because drawing it's a lot of work,
and you would have kept drawing it.
Right.
Okay. So whatever happened to those stories?
A few of them I still have, but some of them have been lost. But I still have some of the original art in binders and boxes in my garage.
Well, don't lose them because when you're famous,
every once in a while I break them out like, wow, I was really good back then. I drew this when I was 16, so it's still fun to me.
So, did you ever consider pursuing a career in graphic art or anything like that, or?
Pretty much the only thing I wanted to do when I came of age was literally the only thing I wanted to do was draw comic books. I mean, I didn't have a backup plan. It was that or nothing, which is not a good thing. I can only imagine my parents. But I pursued comics. I wanted to draw comics, and I would send queries to Marvel and DC and Dark Horse and all these different comic book publishers. It was a lot harder to figure things out back then because we didn't really have... The internet was fairly new. It's not like we could just Google how do you become a comic book artist.
Did you send them your drawings or just the query letters?
No, I would send them drawings. I was very fortunate to meet some people who, one of the artists was Brian Stelfreeze, who I think he went on to draw for Black Panther, and he's really, really good now. I mean, he's amazing. But he taught me how to use Photoshop. Yeah. A mutual friend introduced us, so they helped me out a bit.
So what event or series of events led you to seriously pursue writing while you were already pursuing the graphic novels?
Right.
So what happened with that? What led you into novel writing and then podcasting?
When the Andy series ended, it did not end the way I wanted it to. When that ended, I was really searching, trying to find my way. I had always had this creative bug that was just, it was like a burden. I had to be working on something. It was like a need to me. So, and I thought for sure that was going to be what I would do from then on, really. And when that ended, I had to seriously step back and reevaluate. And maybe a couple months passed, and I started to revisit this story of these characters I had created when I was a teenager. It's like, well, I'll write about those guys because by that time I really did love novels. Uh-huh. So I thought, I got to write a novel. And I'd never really written much.
Because all you have to do is sit down at a word processor and
it just happens.
Yes.
So I was supremely confident, which is a good thing, but I was not always as good as I was confident. So I wrote this gigantic 100,000+ word story, and I was like, wow, this story is great. And then I would sit it down and then revisit it after a few months. It's like, this story needs a lot of work. Or I would let somebody read a portion and they'd be like, you're not quite there yet.
You were Michael Crichton overnight?
No, I wasn't. But I love the process of writing, and I felt like I could get there if I just stuck with it.
So that leads me, is writing a calling, a hobby, or a vocation?
I've thought about that a lot, actually. And first of all, let's start off with the calling. I wish I could say that it is a calling and answer that like definitively. I have a hard time doing that. I feel like creativity is my calling most of all, and writing is a subsect of that. I definitely feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, though, so I almost could say it does feel like a calling. So it definitely is a hobby, and I don't always treat it like a hobby. I treat it like it's a vocation.
Well, and that's good, because a hobby you just kind of put aside and you let other things push it out of the way, and it's second or third or fifth place.
What do you think about my answer?
A vocation is a job. You're looking at it as a job or a business, and so you're dedicated to it every day and to completing it and to making it a priority in your life.
Right.
Some would say a job, that's kind of a drudgery, gotta do it, obligation kind of a thing. So maybe it would be more of a calling. And you said, the drawing or the creativity was a need, it was a burden. That sounds kind of like a calling.
It does. I did want to say this. I know that the Lord has definitely shown up in my life to allow me to write sometimes quite a lot. When I was working on the comic books in the same way, it was very rare circumstances, life circumstances, where a grown man could spend that amount of time doing that. I really felt like I was blessed to do it and blessed to be able to do it. But I did want to ask you about you, because you write as well. So do you consider yourself to have a calling to write?
I think mine is more of a hobby.
Do you? Okay.
And the reason that I say that is because it gets pushed to the back burner a lot.
Right.
If it is a calling, I am being remiss in not treating it as a calling.
I think you definitely have a calling with our group, though. Dalyn's in my writers group. It makes a huge difference here. So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
And perhaps the sub-question should have been first and then the other one second, but at any rate, is writing a talent or a learned skill? You said that you can get better at it. So do you think that it's a natural talent, or do you think it's a learned skill, or both?
I think it's definitely both. Absolutely. Same thing with drawing. I mean, some people can be very gifted at drawing, but they get better with practice and instruction. And it's definitely the same for writing. I don't even think I was naturally gifted with writing very much. I think I was gifted for coming up with a story. I don't think I was necessarily very gifted for writing it down.
But
I think I've gotten there through practice and determination. This is why I say it was learned. I think other people would be way, like my daughter. You know, Layla's way more naturally gifted with writing than I was. So,
but you have such vivid descriptions, and
I think that just goes back to the imagination.
Characters. I mean, that is a gift, because
so much as it is a gift, it's also a learned skill, because I've gotten way, way better in the last 10 years. Way better than I was when I first sat down to write.
Well, and we have to learn the conventions of the day, too.
Right.
That's part of it. Okay, you're given a choice. Never listen to another audiobook or never write another story. Which do you choose?
This is easy. I would never listen to another audiobook. I can still read regular books, right? You didn't specify that.
Well, no, I didn't specify that.
Yeah, that might actually be good for me. So right now, I try to read the Bible every day, but other reading, it gets pushed. Like you said, when you're writing, sometimes it gets pushed aside, like it gets squeezed out.
Is that because the time sitting down and doing nothing? I mean, it takes up all your time. You can't be doing multitasking while you're reading a book.
Some of it is probably just bad habits. But I think there's still some of that stuff there where reading is just, it's like I have to shift over into the work gear just a little bit.
Mm-hmm. What would you do if you could no longer write? Now, you've already made your choice. You would give up audiobooks.
Oh, totally.
If you had to make a choice between audiobooks and writing, you would give up audiobooks. So
I think if I had to give up writing, I would probably do something on YouTube. I want to do it anyway, but life's too short.
Not enough hours in the day. If you could give your younger self advice, what would it be?
To be honest.
To be honest with yourself, or to be honest with others? Just honest overall?
I don't think honesty was my strong suit when I was young.
Well, you made up stories, so.
Yeah. There you go.
But making up stories is what you did. That's
I don't know if that's what you're looking for. I think if I could go back and talk to like the 16-year-old version of myself who didn't want to do anything but draw comics, I would take myself by the shoulders and be like, get a grip, man! Are you serious? But I would say, I don't know how I would say it, but what I would try to explain to my young self would be that there is a way to get to that goal that doesn't have to do with your effort. For instance, if you were running a race and you were running the fastest you had ever run, I mean, you were running faster than the entire field, so you were having a great race, but you were running in the wrong place, you're not going to win, no matter how much you try. And so there was a part of actually getting a job with Marvel that I didn't understand. I needed to live in a different city I really needed to live in New York or San Diego. And I didn't know that. I didn't understand some of these important things. Also, I didn't understand how good some of my competition was. So I really needed a plan B, or I needed to go. I kind of went all in. I really did, but I needed to go all in the right way with the right sort of coaching and understanding. But, even so, that's life. But.
And kids today have it easier because there is the internet. But on the other hand, everybody has the internet.
Everybody has the internet. There's also, I think the internet has only made more competition.
Mm-hmm. Right, that's what I mean. Because now everyone can Google, how do I draw for marble?
Right. You're competing against people from all over the world. Mm-hmm. There's tremendous artists out there.
Well, you are also a tremendous artist, and we're going to have to close down this session for today. But I really enjoyed talking to you again, learning more about your writing journey.
Thank you, Dalyn. Absolutely.
Hey guys, thanks for listening, and thank you to our guest host, Dalyn Woods. If you want to support her, you can find her book, My Sister's Keeper, on Amazon. Also, she has 2 more books underway, The Bright Escape and Exposed. Her name is spelled Dalyn, that's Dalyn, Woods, Woods. One last bit of business before we release into the world the recording from my sons. Oh yeah, I bet you forgot about that, but I haven't. I hope you're enjoying the off-season shows, but really I don't know if you're enjoying them unless I receive feedback. So we're having another giveaway. The Blue Deck cards are turning out great. That's what the prize is. Here's how it works. There's 3 ways to enter. You can email me, joseph@thebluedeck.com, or message me through Twitter @Joseph Mazerac. Send me a message through either one of those, letting me know if you like the off-season. Did the discussion hold your attention? Would you want to hear more? Or should we just hold off on releasing more shows until the start of Season 2? Your input is greatly appreciated. Also, you can rate the show. Our last amazing reviewer wrote, "We just found this podcast on Instagram. My kids love hearing the story. It reminds me of Adventure in Odyssey. I would love to share the story. Such a great story to get lost in. God bless from Colorado." Wow, I'm telling you, I love reading reviews like this. To whoever wrote it, God's blessings right back at you from Jacksonville, Florida. So again, there's 3 ways to win the Blue Deck playing cards. Review the show or message me about the off-season through Twitter or email. I'll make sure the email and Twitter links are in the show notes. Quick reminder to any writers out there, we offer editing and critique services on our website. Our 30-page review is only $60. I handle all of those personally. We also offer quick reads and full edits. To learn more, head over to thebluedeck.com and click on the Services tab. Now, be forewarned, you're about to hear from my children, and what they say is complete nonsense. Okay, say what your name is. That is awful. Speak.
Yeah.
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 That's too loud.
Yes.
Say your name.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.